You're tuning in to a special episode of Drive with NAR. Mike Takeover here in Boston, Massachusetts. I'm James Twiggins, the co-host of Real Estate Insiders Unfiltered podcast with my colleague, Mr. Keith Robinson.
Yes, sir.
We had Deanne on from the Legal Affairs Department at NAR, and we talked about the to-dos and the to-don'ts.
That's right.
New guidelines that came out. Real quick, give them a breakdown.
Yeah, new guidelines came out, told you what you should do, told you what you shouldn't do, and she's probably the most fun attorney I've ever talked to.
That is a fact.
Put it in your ears, kids.
Deanne, welcome to the show. We are very, very, very grateful that you've stopped by for 15 minutes. I know the membership will love hearing from you. First of all, just wanted to say kudos for some of the material you guys have been putting out.
Yeah.
Let's start with that. I know there's lots of guidelines you've been putting out for consumers, for the membership. Where do they go? What are some of those guidelines and documents you've been putting out? And then we'll dive deep into the to-dos and don'ts, which is what we want to cover today.
Right. So, well, thank you so much for having NAR Legal Affairs on your podcast. It's very exciting.
Yeah.
And as you mentioned, we have so many resources really to empower our members, but also to help them when they communicate with consumers.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, and
right.
everything's available at facts.realtor. I mean, anyone who hasn't been on that website. And here's the thing, it's being updated all the time.
Yeah.
It is like fresh content. Always coming out with some new things. But we've got this great consumer guide series, everything from open houses to veterans to, 10 questions to ask your listing agent, 10 questions to ask your buyer's agent. Something new is coming out every week on those. And then early on, after the settlement was announced, we shifted our Window to the Law video series to do Window to the Law settlement facts, diving into some of those frequently asked questions.
Yeah.
And we've done 19 videos so far.
Wow.
We've gotten over 800,000 views on social media.
That is awesome.
Yeah, so we're really happy with how that has reached the membership as well as the public.
Well, and just a quick comment, I think it's super, well, go ahead, Keith.
Before we move on, just give us that website again one more time because people might have missed it. So just give it to us slow.
Facts.realtor.
Facts.realtor.
And by the way, for everybody to know, you should be going there often because all of these new guidelines and things and documents and updates I distribute for our membership. So I think everybody needs to be paying attention to that. So you're seeing what you guys are coming out with.
It's really where you should go when you have a first question, right? Like if I'm like, hey, what about blah?
Exactly.
That's where you would go first, right?
You know what? What else is where a broker can go when they need content for a meeting? Right?
Oh,
for
great
their
call.
office
Great
meeting,
content.
Right?
Yeah.
Great content.
Yep.
Also on their social media, push out those consumer guides, right? Like be the source of the information for all of your followers on social media.
All right, so I want to take this down because I know you just published some new documentation. I love it. Want to be very clear. Everybody knows I've had lots of opinions about this stuff who follow our podcast.
Boy, have you.
And I want to make sure credit is deserved where it's due here. You guys have come out with some new to-dos and don'ts on the buy side and on the sell side. I've gone through them. We've distributed them. They're great. So talk to us about some of these things. Let's start with buy side.
Okay.
And I guess the to-dos, I'll take the positive of it. Keith can take the other. So
For once.
Well, really the number one thing on that to-do list with your buyer is to articulate your value, right? Know your value, communicate your value, and do that often, right? Throughout the process. Because as you know, home buying is not, may not be a very quick process, especially in today's market, right?
Yeah.
So it is so important to keep articulating your value throughout the process with your buyer client. The next thing is to explain that written buyer agreement. So by now, a lot of consumers already know this. I was walking into a bakery a couple of weeks ago, and there was a group of relatively young people sitting outside talking about how you have to sign a buyer agreement now before you tour a home.
Right.
So it is getting out there to the public. The public knows about it. So it is important as an agent to explain what that written buyer agreement is, what it does, and why the buyer is being asked to sign it. And it is pervasive. Most MLSs around the country, they have this rule so that the consumers know about it, but they still need to hear it from the agent. Yeah.
It's also a good opportunity to learn. It's a good opportunity to explain what you do and what you charge and all of those things. So this is I see it as an opportunity for us to level up as well. So,
exactly. And that's a great segue into the third do, and that is to be transparent about the compensation and some of the potential costs throughout the home buying journey, and really what you are doing as that real estate professional guiding them through the process.
Yeah, not anything to be afraid of, right? You're having the conversation.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I think that has been kind of this great through line through all of these practice changes is it's about inviting conversation.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
You know, it's opening that door, no pun intended.
I see what you did there. I see what you did there. Dun.
To having more conversations and more in-depth conversations with your clients on both sides, whether you're representing the seller or the buyer.
Yeah.
And then that leads into letting the buyer know about all their options,
Okay.
right? And this is so important as a lawyer. I cannot say this enough. That final to do is to know and follow your state law.
Right.
As different states, may have some nuances, some different things. So it's so important to know and follow your state law.
Okay.
All right. Now let's get naughty, can we? Let's talk about the to don'ts. What are the to don'ts?
Well, and I think the first to don't is something that as realtors following the realtor's code of ethics, and that is to not misrepresent anything, right? To be honest and truthful in your communications and not misrepresent anything, including around that written buyer agreement.
Okay.
And then one of the things I love about our members and about real estate professionals is how creative
Yeah.
you are.
Yes.
You are innovators, you are entrepreneurs. But in this case,
Don't
stop
be.
looking for the workarounds.
Yeah.
Right.
Follow
Right.
the rules.
Yes.
Don't do the workarounds.
Right.
Channel your energy into implementing and how can you evolve your business, right? To comply with the practice changes.
Right. Right.
And then really it's about not steering your clients away from listings that may not offer compensation and really choosing those properties that meet your buyer's objective criteria, right? And not just taking things off the list because they don't have.
Can I boil that down to just show every home for sale? Like it just show every home for sale.
Show every home for sale.
And then whatever you want to do, make it part of the process. But it just every home for sale, whatever the buyer wants, show them those properties, and then work out the rest of that as you go.
Don't think about what's like. Don't think about what's best for you, and think about what is paramount for your client.
That is a
right?
great way to say it.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
And then the last thing on that to don't list is don't share your agreement with your competitors, right? That signed written buyer agreement, that's confidential. That is, business work product. Now your MLS may need to audit your files. This is like any other MLS rule that they enforce, but you don't need to share your agreement with your competitors.
Okay. I have one question before we move to the sell side. The buyer rep agreement, they're signing it, they're agreeing to those terms. I'm trying to figure out a phrase. That's the terms, you don't modify those, that's what it is? Can you give us any kind of clarity on that? From here's what I met with them, this will be agreed upon, and that's that.
Right. And that is one of the to don'ts is, don't accept compensation that's more than what you have in your agreement.
Got it.
It's a really important one.
Just to clarify, but it is okay to accept less than what's in your agreement, correct?
Yes, it is okay to accept less.
Yeah.
Okay, let's go to sell side.
Okay.
So tell us about the to-dos, and then we'll go to as Keith said, the to-don'ts.
Yeah.
So
Trademark to don't. I trademarked it.
So the first to do on the seller side is actually the same as on the buyer side, and that's about value.
Yeah.
Right.
Articulating your value as that professional, what you're bringing to the transaction, how you can help them, through this, in this case, the home selling journey, right? And then it's about explaining what offers of compensation are, and why a buyer may ask a seller to pay something for their buyer's agent.
For closing costs. Yeah.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly. And just really, again, being transparent, having that conversation of this is what you can expect. These are what your options are. And how do you want to approach this?
Yeah. And I feel like sometimes, there's articles and news and all that. And so maybe there's this sense of like, I'm not gonna blah, blah, blah. Right. Well, just slow down, relax. Right. Just, we're going to evaluate everything in this process, and we're going to look at everything to help you make the best decision for you, Mr.
Seller.
Mr. Seller.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
And so it is ensuring that the seller understands their options.
Right.
Yeah.
Is how we encapsulate that,
that's
right?
Okay.
It's a great way to say it.
And then the next thing is to get written approval, authorization from your seller if they are going to allow you to make an offer of compensation to the buyer's broker. That does need to be in writing.
Okay.
That is part of the settlement agreement, one of those practice changes.
Okay.
And then also to inform the seller that the buyer's agent, the buyer may seek compensation.
Right.
From them.
Setting that seller up for expectations that could potentially be coming across.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay.
Exactly.
Yep.
And then, this is something that we have seen through many markets over many decades, and that is to present all offers, right?
Right.
You still got to present all the offers and treat buyers fairly.
If you aren't watching this on video, I'm rubbing my forehead to stop the forming migraine from fully I can't believe we have to say that out loud into a microphone, but I guess we still do, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Gotta present all offers.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then, the same thing here too that we saw on the buyer side. Know that state law.
Right.
Know and follow your state
Your
law.
local. Your
Yep,
local.
exactly. Exactly.
Now it's time for to don't, the naughty list. All right. Here's what the to don't do.
Don't use the MLS to make offers of compensation.
Right. Yeah, that was somewhat clear,
The
I think.
centerpiece,
Yeah.
But, that also includes, again, not being creative and using code words, right? To get around.
Yeah.
So, just don't.
We won't use any examples,
No,
but just
we won't. But
everybody
we've seen
stop
some
that
crazy
nonsense.
things. Yeah, knock it off,
please.
kids. Knock it off. Act right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then, as we saw on the buyer side, don't share your signed listing agreement with your competitors, right?
Yeah.
And don't communicate without authorization from your seller.
You need to know your fiduciary is here.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then, the last thing is, and this is something that we've been seeing, this is why we put it on the to don't list, is as a listing agent, don't be asking for the written buyer agreement from the other side, right? Again, that is a private contract between the buyer and that broker. And, no reason to share it, no reason to ask for it.
Right.
Yeah.
So you guys have put this new guidance out, which has been great, as I'm going to reiterate again, because I know we only got a few minutes here.
But everyone needs to read it. Let's just plant
And
that
there's more
flag.
to it than what you just shared. There's actually a lot more.
Kind of
We're
a
just
summary.
we're giving you a high level.
Right? Yeah, so go download it. These are available as PDF downloads.
Read it.
Download it at facts.realtor. Gonna say that again, facts.realtor.
Yes.
Right.
And if you're a broker, again, what a great
Training
thing training content for your offices.
Well, I'm going to go further. I think that it's important that all the local and state associations grab this document, which I'm sure they have it, but just making sure that they're getting that out, sharing that with their membership. MLSs should share that with their membership too. It really, for me, speaking just on behalf of my firm, it really helped get some clarity on stuff.
Yeah.
And I think it will help everyone understand, these are the lanes, stay within these lanes. And you're gonna be much better off. To the point you said, stop trying to do things that are not within the terms of the settlement. Just focus on what it is. And look, this isn't that complicated. I'm gonna simplify this for everybody. It's not that complicated. If you just follow what's here, there are lots of companies and agents that are doing just fine. I see lots of opportunity in this stuff. And if you just follow the rules, you're gonna be what I've learned from a lot of the podcasts that we've done over the past 2 days is that buyers want representation, sellers want representation. It's an infrequent transaction. They're looking for guidance. Articulate your value, charge whatever service or fee that it is, which is obviously negotiable, all of those things, but just focus on servicing your client and they're gonna be just fine and so will you.
I'm going to add one piece and push back on you a little because that's what makes podcasts good, and then we'll wrap this up.
Be nice.
I will, but it is complicated, but it's only complicated once. It's only complicated the first time you're experiencing these new things, right? The change is hard. None of us like it, but it's complicated the first time.
Yeah.
But if you could take the time to read it, prepare before you need it, then as you're entering these agreements for the first time in this new way, it'll be complicated. Fine, no problem. But you'll assimilate it very quickly, and then it'll just be how we're doing business going forward. Thank you so much for the knowledge.
No, thank you for letting us have this opportunity to get even more, out there with our members with these fabulous new resources that we have for them.
You're
Keep up the great
officially
work.
the most fun attorney I've ever talked to.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
Thank you so much.
My
Thanks
pleasure.
again.